Hi there, my name is Marley and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be filming a video where I talk about all of the TV shows and movies that I watched in the last couple of months. So in July and August, and do kind of like mini reviews and tell you what you should watch and what you shouldn't. So I think how I'm going to format this video is talking about movies first and then TV shows. And I'm going to talk about them in the same order that I do my book wrap-ups, where I talk about my least favorite to my favorite. So let's start out with the movie Elvis. This was actually, I think, the most recent movie I watched, and I did not like it. But I watched it in a very distracted environment. Like, I missed quite a bit of the movie, I think. I wasn't totally in it. I was being distracted, kept getting paused, stuff like that. So I didn't have the best environment to watch it. But from what I saw of it, I wasn't really liking it. I felt like it would kind of hop around. I would miss things. I wasn't that thrilled with, I guess, Austin Butler as Elvis. I don't know, I just feel like I saw those clips of Elvis at the end, the real Elvis, and I was like, oh, he comes across as so charming, and I just didn't really think Austin Butler was like charming enough for him. But as that disclaimer, like I did have a not great situation when watching it, I guess. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't really like that one, didn't really appreciate it. Next up, I did watch the film Purple Hearts on Netflix. This is a, I guess, enemies to lovers romance movie. A lot of people are watching it. The reason I wanted to watch it is because there's a type 1 diabetic main character, and I have type 1 diabetes. So I really wanted to see, you know, that representation. I was very excited about that, and unfortunately I was a little bit let down in both the type 1 rep and the overall movie experience. Basically, it's about this girl who I think is in her 20s, and she was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. She cannot afford all of the medical costs that she now has. If you don't know, insulin is very, very expensive, especially in the States where the movie takes place. So she is kind of having to decide on paying for her rent or paying for her insulin, which she needs to live. So she's dealing with that while she's waitressing and trying to become a musician. And then she comes across this guy who is in the army. They don't get along at first, but then she finds out that if you marry someone, like if you marry a soldier, you will get health benefits and health coverage. So even though they don't really get along at first, they decide to have this fake marriage so that she can get her insulin and all of her medical costs covered. And then why does he do it? I'm just like forgetting this. He has some reason that he's willing to do it for too, I think. I can't even remember that now. But during all of that, they end up falling in love. Now, the actors are very pretty. Both of them I've seen in other things, and I think they're pretty up and coming actors right now. But I think their relationship, they didn't quite do the enemies to lovers thing well. I didn't really see enough like progression. It wasn't terrible, but I don't know. I think that could have been a bit better. And then the type 1 rep, it was nice to see. I'm glad that, you know, light's being shed on some of the issues that American type 1s have with the costs. But for example, there's one scene where our main character is being very weak. She's on stage performing, and then she gets very weak and dizzy looking. And for me as a type 1, I was like, oh, she's having a low blood sugar, because that's kind of how you get when you're having a low blood sugar. You're shaky, you're kind of unstable. And then she goes to the bathroom and takes an injection of insulin, which insulin makes you go down. So I'm like, oh, she was having a high blood sugar? It's just like, that's not really how you react when you have a high blood sugar. That's not really how you act. It was more like when you have a low. So that was kind of confusing. I heard that there was a doctor that was on set to help with the type 1 rep, but I'm like, where was he during this part? I felt like she was acting like she was like a heroin addict or something, needing a shot. It was just like, it was a little bizarre. And I know type 1 diabetes wasn't the main point of this movie. It was a romance, but I wish they showed even more about type 1 diabetes. I just feel like it was just used as a plot device, a reason that she needed money. and that was all. Then I also watched Eyes Wide Shut, so a bit of a throwback here with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. I forget why I was interested in this. It might have been on some sort of list I saw of like the best movies or like the best movie twists. This is about a married couple who's pretty successful. The guy is a doctor. Oh my god, how do I even explain it? It deals a bit with their relationship. It deals a bit with like sexual content. Basically, the main guy, the husband, ends up stumbling across a cult and getting a bit wrapped up in that. This movie was definitely kind of weird, uncomfortable, a lot of like nudity and like sex stuff, as I said. It was a bit boring at times. It was a bit unenjoyable at times. But then at the end, I feel like it is a movie that you can really discuss a lot about. I know my boyfriend was looking up theories about it. There are a lot of theories surrounding this movie, what it says about like cults and Hollywood and things like that. I feel like I don't even want to speak too much about that. This was just okay, but I wish it was better. Then I watched Spiderhead. To be honest, this was a while ago. This was the only movie I watched in July. All these other movies I watched in August. So this was the one movie I watched in July. It was that kind of dystopian thriller movie with Chris Hemsworth, Miles Teller. Basically, Chris Hemsworth runs this sort of facility for criminals. They can take part in his research and experiments to get out of jail. So they'll do their time there instead, and it's a bit of a nicer environment than just being in a prison. But they are getting experimented on with these drugs that can control them. It's like mind control kind of thing. This movie was okay. Like, I always do enjoy seeing Miles Teller, and it was kind of fun to see Chris Hemsworth in this different type of role than I've seen him be in. A little bit more of a morally gray, not as nice character. So this was pretty enjoyable, but I do feel like it didn't really stick with me a ton. Then I also watched Honor Society. This was like a YA movie. It had the guy that plays Dustin in Stranger Things. This was a little bit like not what I expected. We're following a main character named Honor, who is, I almost want to say like very type A, like very focused on being successful, doing well in school, blah, blah, blah. Which at first I was like, I don't love that because I feel like we just see that type of character so much. But then I thought she was going to be like kind of a nice person, and she was not. Like, she was super manipulative. Basically, there's a few other students that are in the running for the scholarship that she wants. So she decides to do things to each of them to distract them from their studies and kind of like ruin their lives. But it is kind of cute. Like, she's not actually evil at the end of the day. Like, she has character growth and stuff like that. So it's cute seeing some of the relationships she forms with some of these other side characters. The guy who played Dustin does kind of become her love interest in the movie, but it did go in some directions that I wasn't expecting. So I actually did enjoy this. I feel like it was kind of fun to watch. So yeah, I feel like I kind of would recommend this one. Then I also watched Not Okay with Zoe Deutsch and Dylan O'Brien. I've been seeing stuff behind the scenes on TikTok about this movie, so I was excited to finally watch it. It's basically about this girl who is a writer, or wants to be a writer, wants to be famous kind of thing. So she pretends that she goes on this trip to Paris, and she's photoshopping all her images. It's kind of showing how social media is fake, right? Like, we see a lot of movies and things that focus on that now. Then this terrorist attack happens in Paris. She had just showed that she was there even though she wasn't, and so everyone's calling her saying like, oh my god, were you there when the terrorist attack happened? Like, oh my god. And she pretends that she was there. And so, very problematic. Obviously, she is a very like unlikable character, which the movie warns you at the beginning, which is sort of funny. But yeah, it's just like a lot of social commentary in this movie, but it's also like a comedy. And this was also pretty unique with what ends up happening and how the story goes and what they do with the main character. I quite recommend this one. Dylan O'Brien was also looking amazing in this one. He wasn't in it a ton, but he was playing a pretty goofy character, so I feel like it was fun to see him in all of his scenes too. And then my favorite movie of the month, I absolutely loved it, and that was Look Both Ways on Netflix. And this is the movie with Lily Reinhart from Riverdale. Essentially, we're following her in college, and she ends up having this one-night stand with her friend from college, and she is feeling sick at this graduation party, and so she decides to take a pregnancy test to see if she's sick because she's pregnant. And then the movie diverts into two different timelines. One of them is if she is pregnant and we see that she decides not to go away for school. She stays home, moves back in with her parents, and sort of co-parents this child with that college friend of hers. The other timeline is that she's not pregnant, and so we see her going away to school in LA with her best friend. She wants to be an animator. It's like her passion in life, so we see her trying to get into animation, really focused on her career, and she does get a love interest in that timeline as well. And I just loved this. I loved seeing both of these stories play out. I was super invested. I liked seeing her romance in each storyline and how they would be different and then how they would be similar, and it just had such a beautiful message at the end. I was crying. I thought it was beautiful. So I really do recommend this. It's like a rom-dram, I guess, like romantic dramatic comedy kind of movie. It just had it all for me, so I really recommend this movie. Okay, now for the TV shows I've been watching. So I watched the one and only season of Sharp Objects. This is an adaptation of the book by Gillian Flynn that I read recently, so I wanted to watch this adaptation after reading the book, and unfortunately I did not enjoy it very much. I would say definitely read the book and don't bother with the TV show. Or if you've read the book, definitely don't watch this TV show because it's just gonna be worse. Maybe if you never read the book, you could just watch this, but it definitely was not as good. It stars Amy Adams, which first of all, I do like Amy Adams, but I just don't think she was right for this role personally. The other casting was okay, but I just think it was very slow. Like, this is a relatively short book and it got really kind of dragged out into all these episodes. But then ironically at the end, I feel like it was rushed, and I wish like the ending would have been fleshed out. I really didn't like the very end. The very end was bad. The very end was bad. And I saw one comment saying it's because they were going to do a second season. But I'm like, why would you do a second season if there's like one book? Sorry, I should say the plot is like this woman who's a journalist, and then there are some murders happening in her hometown, so her boss sends her there to report on it. And she, you know, she can visit her family while she's there. So we're following this murder mystery investigation that she is trying to get information on. And we're also seeing the very weird, like, toxic dynamics between her and her family, or like her and her mother. Yeah, it just didn't deliver, especially after reading the book recently. It's like, no, like, you tried, but no. Then I've been watching Riverdale season 6, which recently ended. I don't even want to speak on this that much. Like, I'm kind of over it. How I watch Riverdale is like, I won't watch it for a while and then I'll binge a couple episodes to catch up, and then I won't watch, and then I'll come back. So maybe that's not the best way to watch it. You should just binge it all at once if you're gonna watch, or watch it on a weekly basis. Because every time I come back to it, I'm like, what is going on? And sometimes I'll be kind of enjoying it, and sometimes I'm like, I'm over this. So by the end of this season, I really was just feeling over it, and all of this weird witchy, literal witchy stuff going on. Like, the show needs to end. Then I have started watching Miss Marvel, which is obviously a Marvel show. I've only watched 3 episodes, so that's like half of the show. I'm not liking it that much. If you don't know, it's actually about a younger superhero. She is like, I think supposed to be 16, and she is Muslim, and that is a big part of the show. She's also obsessed with Captain Marvel, who is like played by Brie Larson in the movies. She's very much like a fangirl kind of thing and wants to be Captain Marvel. She gets her hands on this sort of heirloom, family heirloom that goes on her wrist, and it triggers powers. And then it's just kind of like a typical superhero thing, right? First episode was probably the best. I liked the very YA fun vibes, right? But as it's going on, it's getting more into the superhero stuff, I guess, or the mythology. I'm just like not getting as interested. And I don't know. I have some other criticisms of it, but let's wait and see. I have the other half of the show to watch. So hopefully it'll get better, but I kind of have a bad feeling that it's gonna get worse. Then I also watched Severance season 1. I want to say this was on Apple TV. This has an interesting concept where you can sign up for this program called Severance, where you go into work and you have like your work life, but you don't remember your personal life when you're there. And then when you leave work, you don't remember anything from work. So you're living these truly 2 separate lives. So we follow mainly like the one character, and we see his life at work and at home. And then, you know, it's one of those things where it's kind of like a mysterious thing, like something is going on with like a corrupt organization, and it's a mystery, and we have our like quirky little group of characters that is kind of trying to figure it out. I feel like I thought this was gonna be more like a mini series. I like when shows are just like a one-off season, especially with a concept like this, but it did end on a cliffhanger, so we're gonna have another season. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I'm interested in the concept, but I just feel like we didn't find out a lot in this season. I wish we found out more and had more reveals. But yeah, you know, the characters are good, the actors are good and everything, so looking forward to seeing more. Then I've been watching The Amazing Race Canada. I think it's season 9. It's still airing right now. I don't watch The Amazing Race consistently. I've watched a few American seasons and maybe like one Canadian season. I don't always watch it, but when I do, I really enjoy it. This season though, I don't know, like I feel like at first the casting, like everyone was coming across kind of boring. I do think that now that we're in it, I'm seeing more of their personalities. I do have people I'm rooting for, people I'm rooting against. But there was some weird stuff going on though with like getting rid of people and bringing people back. It was a thing where some people got COVID, so they brought back the people who had already been out. But then once those people recovered from COVID, they brought them back too. So we were at like week 6 and no one was out. Like, it was very weird what they were doing with that. I'm also feeling like it is just better to watch the American version, because in Canada they only race around Canada, and I just feel like it's more fun when they're actually racing around the entire world. So then I watched season 3 of The Umbrella Academy. This is a show I really enjoy. It is a superhero show about this family of superheroes. They're not actually all biologically related, but there was this event where a bunch of women mysteriously got pregnant and had these kids. Like, all over the world, every kid that was born at this time has a magical power, or like a superpower. This rich man decided to collect 7 of them and raise them as superheroes. So they have different powers like mind control, super strength, seeing ghosts, like seeing the dead, teleporting, etc. All of the characters are like very interesting personalities and everything like that. We have time travel. They're trying to stop the end of the world every season. So there's action, but there's also like a lot of humor. Like, it's very fun. It's not like any other superhero thing that you see out there. I was enjoying this season a lot until the end. I feel like the last couple episodes, nothing was happening. Like, they just had too many episodes and just had to like fill them with like 0 content. But I still overall do enjoy this show. I'm just feeling a little bit iffy about the ending, and even like the ending cliffhanger that it had. But I really like the actors and like all the comedy, like character stuff in this show. I would recommend it. Then I've also been watching and loving Big Brother US. It's season 24 right now, and it's also still airing. The last few seasons of Big Brother have not been hitting. They have been kind of boring, but this season has actually been really good, and I'm super invested. I'm like constantly on Twitter looking at the people's tweets of who watches the live feeds to see like extra content and stuff. If you don't know, it's like a game show where basically you're just trying to win power throughout the weeks and evict people. There was something that kind of changed the game recently, and it's a little bit touchy. It has to do with race and like some racism stuff that's going on in the house, which is very unfortunate. But other than that, I have been enjoying the season and all of our contestants. I'm definitely rooting for Taylor and Monty and Turner at this point. I was liking Michael, but I feel like I'm not liking him quite as much anymore. Okay, now we have my top 2 favorite shows that I absolutely loved watching recently. One of them is Never Have I Ever season 3. This is a show that Mindy Kaling produces. It's following Davy, who is an American Indian girl in high school. At the beginning of the show, she's grieving and dealing with the loss of her father, who she was very close with, and he's recently passed. And then she's just dealing with a lot of other teenage issues with wanting to be popular, wanting a boyfriend, friendship stuff, all that. This season, I almost want to say, is like the best season. I feel like the humor was on point. I think in comedies, a lot of the time, it just gets better because these actors become more comfortable in their characters and the writers kind of figure it out. One character, I don't remember what his name is now. He's kind of like a side character. He's become a bigger part and I just find him so funny. There's also a love triangle in this show between Paxton and Ben. I ship Davy and Ben so much. They are like OTP level. So I love seeing their stuff in this season. And I also like that Davy had like grown so much, because it's something a lot of viewers talk about, is that Davy's so unlikable and makes so many mistakes. And I feel like in this season, she finally was making more of the right decisions and wasn't being as annoying. But I honestly was never mad about it because she's a teenage girl. I feel like it's kind of realistic for her to be so flawed and making so many mistakes. But yeah, I was absolutely crying at the end. Like, the relationship between Davy and her mom is so beautiful, and I just love all the relationships that the show has at this point, and it's also just hilarious. And then the last show I have to talk about is Only Murders in the Building, season 1 and 2. I binged both of them with my boyfriend. I am loving that show. You guys have probably heard of it, with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. They are 3 people who live in this like kind of high-end apartment building in New York, and they all are big fans of murder mystery podcasts. And then when a murder happens in their building, they all team up to try and solve who killed this person, and they start their own murder mystery podcast called Only Murders in the Building. So I've read some cozy mystery books, and this is like the only cozy mystery show I can really think of. It's basically a comedy, but it is dealing with these murder mystery elements, and it's great. Like, obviously those actors are all great and really funny, and the mystery is always really cool too. I feel like the second season wasn't as good. They kind of went off the rails a little bit. There was so much going on, and there was so much that was introduced at the beginning that then was irrelevant. So I feel like the writers kind of like took on too much and didn't quite have an exact plan in place like they did in season 1, but it's still so good. Everyone should watch it on Disney Plus if you can. You will like not want to stop watching. Like, after every episode I was like, okay, next one, and when I ran out, it was devastating. Yeah, can't wait for season 3, because they did leave off on a cliffhanger teasing for the next season. So I hope it will have more of like season 1 vibes rather than season 2 vibes. But yeah, can't wait. So those are all my TV show and movie reviews. It's a little bit less than normal. I feel like I definitely didn't watch as many movies as I normally do. But let me know if you have thoughts on any of these things, if I've convinced you to watch any of them, and if you have any recommendations for me. Be sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.